Hello, friends. This is Daniel Slocum. I work in product success here at ServiceNow. Today, I want to talk to you about the enterprise asset management product that is so happy to be released here with Tokyo with ServiceNow. Today, specifically, I want to talk about enterprise asset lifecycle management, the disposal feature that we support. Use case, fundamental step in the asset lifecycle when managing enterprise asset estate is disposal. It is generally completed for assets that are at end of life, that are retired due to a lack of need, assets that cannot be repaired. Those would be those that might have gone through a repair process, such as RMA, one of the other workflows that are part of enterprise asset management. So what else? What other use cases do we have? Well, one is an audit trail. We want to understand and have a systematic process for providing a clear audit trail for all assets. We want to protect stakeholder intellectual property. That could be a customer stakeholder, that could be something from the business. And it's especially important for assets that contain regulated data or materials. So let's jump into this product and get it going. Let's show you what we have. Here in the enterprise asset overview, we will click on the inventory icon, taking us to the enterprise asset inventory. Here in the inventory, we have several options across the top. We can review our stock rooms, manage stockroom types, manage stock rules. We have asset audits, and that brings us to disposal orders. Here in our disposal orders, you can see that there are several that are open, several in draft that have not been started. We're just going to open one of those and we're going to work our way through it. I am going to show you, though, the blank form. Here you click New. You choose a stock room. Assign the disposal to a technician. And you can select the vendor if you choose to do so here at this step, or you can add it later. I'm not going to save this form. We're going to go back to the pre-existing and just work our way through one of those. So I'll be Bob Techie today. I'm not going to impersonate Bob. I'm just going to keep it in my system administrator login simply because I have other things I want to show you that will require that. So we're going to jump in as Bob Techie here. Disposal orders, number 2. Okay, so this is showing us that it is for the Enterprise Asset Management Stockroom West, which is the default stockroom, one of the ones that ship with the product as a part of our demo data. The vendor will be Samsung Medicine. There currently is no certificate of disposal applied to this disposal order, simply because we haven't walked through the process yet. And that will be something that Samsung Medicine will provide at the end. We do not know the vendor order ID. However, we're going to start filling in some things. This form assumes that you've reached out to the disposal vendor and you've scheduled a date. So at this point, you're making a phone call. You're going to reach out to the disposal vendor. You're going to schedule a date for the disposal. I'm simply going to choose Thursday the 4th. And we're going to assume that today's Thursday the 4th as we move forward. The person that's going to pick it up, that's going to arrive here, this is going to be Snuffy Schmidt. He's a great contact. The vendor order ID, we've received that from the vendor at the time of our call. It'll be Samsung Medicine 32. We can add some pickup details here. Such as look for Snuffy to arrive in a company van, clearly marked. We know where it's going, who he works for, and he'll obviously have a badge and such. Additional info, if any. So here we go. We can save this record now. What happens when we save this record? A couple things happen in the back end. Workflows, a workflow is kicked off that is created and managed through Flow Designer. I will show you that in a little bit. Disposal tasks are generated from that workflow. So let's go ahead and look at this. The first step is to verify the assets. Which assets, what are the assets that we expect Snuffy to pick up? And the task is assigned to Bob Techie because he's the one that's completing this. The short description says verify the assets planned for disposal, pretty straightforward. And then this part here, please close the task after verification. Closing the task is crucial because the workflow then triggers and adds the next step, a task to Bob Techie. So we are going to verify the tasks. Here on the disposable assets tab, it identifies 6 assets that are available and in this stock room that are ready for pending disposal, that are assigned to this draft, that are assigned to this draft disposal order. We can choose them all. We can choose 1 or 2 of them. Whatever it is that is going to be going out the door with Snuffy when he arrives. I'm going to choose all of them. Once I've selected some, the verify UI action appears, and we would click this. And we are now verifying that these assets are going to be included. Note that the stage has changed to verified. The asset state has changed to retired. If I were to click into the asset, that would be this current state. Pending disposal would be the substate. Also note this scanned column. It says false. This scanned column is here because the enterprise asset management disposal flow supports scanning assets through the ServiceNow mobile agent application, which is available through the iOS and the Android app stores. So you can physically go to the stock room, scan the devices, the assets that are going to be sent out as part of this disposal order. You can open the disposal order and do that. So once we've verified our assets and the state is shown as retired, substate is pending disposal, we close the task. Closing the task will allow the flow to continue and to create another task in the step. This is a very prescriptive process that sends this out and says, all right, verify the assets. Okay, schedule the pickup. I did it a little early on the main form. It's going to show me the scheduled time. This step is to schedule it. I've already done so. So if you hadn't done it at the beginning, you would do it now and you'd identify the pickup name, Snuffy Schmidt. So we can actually close this task because I did it as part of the original form filling out of the disposal order. Note that it was copied here to this task. Refresh the list. Now we identify that the assets have actually left. So when Snuffy arrives, we hand him everything, put it on a pallet, he takes it away and identifies that they're gone. So again, the details tab shows us what to expect. It tells us to close the task when we are done. Allocations for the departing assets will be retired. That's if they are, if this is a computing device and they have software allocations. Assets will be removed from existing contracts. And the business rules that support enterprise asset management processes make sure that you are not disposing anything that is a multi-component asset of the user assembled type or that has add-on assets such as child assets. They should be separated before they go through disposal. So we are going to mark these as departed. Note that the stage changes to in transit. The asset state changes to in transit pending disposal. We will close the task. We'll then receive our next task managed by the flow, which is vendor confirmation. When Snuffy gets back to his main office where they will be disposing of the assets that were sent, he will call back and he'll say, hey, we have them. or someone else from the company will, or they'll send some sort of automated loop back to you, some sort of notification. When you receive that notification, this is the point at which you close this task so that the disposal process can continue. We'll click refresh to see the next task. Here, the vendor now has completed all of the disposal processing steps. And they are sending us back a certificate of destruction or a disposal report of some sort. And depending on what type of asset it was, it could be furniture. They're just going to send back a disposal report. If it's computing equipment or something that has PII on it or something else, then you need to get a certificate of destruction, data destruction. So here we are. We are going to open up the task. We've marked this yes. We will attach a certificate of destruction. So before we close the task, we must click the disposable assets list, and we must mark them as disposed, much like we marked them as departing, acknowledged, etc. So now that they're disposed, we can then close the task. When the task is closed, the certificate of disposal attribute is marked yes, the attachment is present. We click close task. The flow then has a step that copies the certificate to each and every one of the individual assets that were part of the disposal process. Once we've done so, the disposal process is complete. The main disposal order shows that there is a certificate of disposal that has been attached to all the individual assets. The disposal tasks show complete, and we have completed the entire process. I want to take a minute and I want to show you some of the things that keep the processes on the rails, so to speak, the guardrails that enforce enterprise asset management processes and data integrity. As part of the disposal flow and disposable assets records, we have business rules that support the processes. If I were to have canceled the disposal order, it would have canceled the flow that was in process that was driving the flows, that was driving the enterprise asset tasks. When I first created the disposal order, it triggered the asset disposal flow. If I were to have removed one of the assets prior to continuing marking them as verified, the cancel planned asset would have removed that from the list on the disposal order. Check disposal task completion. This validates when we mark the task as closed, it then continues and moves on with the next steps, and so on and so forth. Each one of these business rules has a purpose. I want to call out this one: prevent user assembled and add-on assets. We want to make sure that we do not have user assembled or add-on assets, which are essentially multi-component assets that are part of this enterprise asset management. We do not want those to be disposed as a unit. We want those to be disposed as individual assets. If this were a different type of multi-component asset that came pre-configured from the vendor, then that would be okay. We could send that out as a single asset in this process. There's another part of the disposal flow in process, and it's the flow itself. The flow has several steps. The first one is enterprise asset disposal order. This is the trigger. When it is triggered, then the flow starts. And we have several create task steps. The first task is to schedule pickup. The next task is the asset departure, and so on and so forth. We have the disposal order is canceled. What happens then? All right, we're going to do things in the right order. We're going to mark it as close compete. However, if it is not canceled, then we need to do a vendor confirmation task. We need to add disposal documentation, and we need to move those attachments down to each and every single asset, and that's what these steps do. For each item in the record, copy that attachment down. I want to highlight one thing to you here, and that it is that out of in the baseline product, the different steps in the flow itself have this wait for a duration of time undefined, and that is so that you can either set this yourself, allowing for you to manage your own processes better, instead of at whatever ServiceNow felt was the right duration of time before it would automatically close. Or you can just leave them as is, and that means that once a disposal order is created or an asset task is created for a specific step in this disposal order, that the state will stay the same until you come back to it and continue the process, the disposal flow. Lastly, I want to show you that there is one portion of this that you can customize if you have a need to do so. There's a decision builder function module as part of ServiceNow, and the disposal flow takes advantage of that. The input is at the very beginning of the trigger portion of the disposal flow. If an enterprise disposal order is created, the condition here, there is none. It simply starts the enterprise asset disposal flow. If you want to change this, you could add a new decision row and insert condition column and then start a different flow. And here's an example of why you might want to do that. If you have, for example, this is going to send it out completely to a disposal vendor that's going to dispose of the assets, and it's going to send you back a certificate of destruction, disposal, etc. Say you're a nonprofit organization, or you are a business that wants to donate to a nonprofit organization, and you want to mark the assets at the end of the flow as disposed, donated, or some other combination of state and substate. You would want to then copy the existing enterprise asset disposal flow, modify the asset task step that then populates each of the individual assets. You may not even need, in that situation, a certificate of destruction, but you would need something else, and that would be a certificate of donation or some other document to prove. And so you would modify the enterprise asset disposal flow to create it how you need it to be, and you would add that to condition column so that it would travel down the correct flow for that specific need. If it's a standard disposal for assets that meet the original baseline condition, of course it's going to travel down the out-of-box, the baseline flow. If not, then it's going to travel down the flow that you've created. So this is a methodology to essentially have an if-then statement at the very top of your process. When you create a new enterprise disposal order, you would have it read a specific column to send it down the secondary flow or tertiary flow, etc. This decision table could have multiple decision rows based on your needs. Thank you for watching this video. Look for more on enterprise asset management and the enterprise asset management lifecycle. Thank you.